Good evening, everybody. This is my feedback video for Unit 10. This unit was about research questions. Thank you, Katie, for having feedbacked all posts, and thank you to all of you for your peer feedbacks. I think the way you are engaging with each other is very impressive. Thank you as well for having uploaded your text in time. So I think we are working very well. This is great. I am going to give you a little bit of transversal feedback regarding your aims and your research questions. I think all of you are doing amazing work, but there are a couple of things that I want to mention here and that seem to concern most of you. What we have both noticed, Katie and I, is that your research questions are, in most of the cases, very interesting. But what often happens is that they don't make sense as a whole, in the sense of often the research questions you formulate are not coherent, or they are not linked to each other, right? So you need to be very specific when you define your research questions, and they need to be strongly interlinked. So you need to make sure that they both serve your aim, so they contribute, so they should help you answering addressing your aims. Okay, so go back to your research questions, have a look at them, and make sure that they are strongly interlinked. Okay, that they make sense, that they allow you to make a point. Okay, often what also happens is that some of you have a lot of research questions, 5, 6, 7, 8. Some of you have 10 research questions. This is too much, okay? Because you inevitably start to go in all directions when you have all these research questions. So it's important to have max 2, 3, okay? But then really to make sure that they are interlinked. And if you are not able to interlink them, then there is a problem with your focus and your aim. So you will have to go back to what is the objective of my research project, okay? What exactly do I want to understand? And if you are not able to formulate that in 1, 2, or 3 research questions, your objective is still not very clear, okay? So linked to this first point is a second feedback that we want to give you, namely that we both have the impression that the aims that you're formulating are very, very, very broad, and this is probably the cause for the challenges that some of you seem to encounter with defining research questions. It's because your aims are too broad, and especially too broad for an MA project. Okay, don't forget that this is a small scale research. Okay, you have just a couple of months to work on it, and make sure that your project is feasible. Okay, so often what happens is that your project will require different methodologies. This is not necessarily a problem when you in terms of when you do a large project, but here in your case, make sure that you have one aim that comes with one methodology. Okay, don't multiply the methodologies, and try really to focus on what is feasible, what do I want to do, okay, and what can I do in 4 months. Okay, so for example, some of you just add interviews just like this. It's not very clear how it is related to your aim, but you just seem, let's just make a couple of interviews. So everything that you're gonna suggest needs to serve your aims, okay? And again, in most of the cases, your aims are too broad. So go back to your aims. Try to think, is this feasible? Is this what I can do in 5 months? Do I need all these methodologies? What will they allow me to say about what? Okay, so in most of the cases you are too broad, and in most of the cases you work with too many methodologies. So I know that often we think, no, it's not me, it's somebody else. Everybody should go back to their aims and questions and the methodologies suggested, and make sure that they are feasible, that they are coherent, and that they make sense. Okay? Yeah, point 3. What often also happens is that you formulate too many yes and no questions. Okay, I mean, when we do research, the questions that we ask should never be answerable by a yes or a no. Okay, this is not a research question, and of course you have all read about this, but interestingly many of you still formulate yes and no question. Then many of you also focus a lot on descriptive research questions. So descriptive research questions are questions that start with what. So what is going on there and there. But the point is not to describe, but it's rather to analyze and explain. So your question should start with a how. How are things happening? How is this and this going on? And then why are things happening the way they are? Okay, so your research questions are still too descriptive and not analytical. Okay, so this is, for example, something that differentiates us from journalists, for example, who describe a situation, a fact, an event. Okay, our job is to analyze. Okay, and your questions have to serve this analytical purpose. So for the moment, most of the questions remain very descriptive. Okay, so sometimes these are yes and no questions, sometimes they are too descriptive. Okay, so make sure that they become analytical. Okay, in other cases what we see is that your questions are not answerable. So this is again linked to either to the fact that the aims you formulate are too broad or are not feasible or just not accessible, right? So it's just not investigatable. Okay, so go back to your question and ask yourself, is this something that I can investigate and assess and understand? Are there information that I need, the type of data that I need in order to be able to answer this question? Can I access this data in the lapse of time that I have? Okay, is this realistic? This is very, very, very important that you go back to your text and really go through every question and ask yourself, is this a realistic question? Okay. Yeah. For me, I mean, what is important is that you really go back to the texts of your module leaders, of the people who you have met in this year. Read our work and see what are the aims that we formulate, what are the questions that we formulate, and get inspired by us. For the moment, I see still too strong detachment from what your tutors do, and who will also be your future supervisor, by the way, and what you do. And you can get inspiration by us, or other people who you like, not necessarily us. Who is your favorite author? Okay, define your favorite author, start reading her or his articles, and see how this person formulates questions and formulates aims, and then imitate. Okay, for the moment I think I am very happy about your engagement and your enthusiasm, but in terms of aims and questions and how these two aspects interrelate, I think there needs more work in most of the cases. Okay, so this is not the end of the world. This is okay. This is normal, and this is why we are doing this. And just go back to your questions. So for your next section, you will have to work on the literature review. So I would suggest that you do both. Actually, you use the literature review in order to redefine your questions and your aims, because by looking at what others have done, it may become more easy for you to define what you want to do. Okay. In any case, continue like this, continue posting, continue feedbacking. I'm very happy about this. You're doing great work. See you soon. Bye-bye.